Meeting open for my what I'm calling my last cast. It's very nice to see so many people. Okay. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to my last cast. I always have a look around first of all to see if there's anybody from the club who I haven't seen before online. Bob Blackman, it's very good to see you here today. I think I can work out why you're here, but it's very good to see you. Please do come along whenever you can to our meeting. We're also celebrating today United Nations Charter Day, which was on the 26th of June. We welcome John Gaffer, who is going to be our speaker on the 20th of July, has come along today to see how we operate. Now, what I always do at this point is to actually ask anybody from overseas to introduce themselves. I have a list of people we're expecting to be on board from overseas, but it never quite ties up with the people who are actually here from overseas. I'll tell you who we're expecting. We're expecting Marie-Pierre, the former Seychelles High Commissioner, as a guest of Varsi's. We are expecting, and I have seen Ed Bethel, the former High Commissioner from the Bahamas. I know he's on here today. We're expecting Christos Tertonis, the President of the Rotary Club of Thessalonica in Greece. We are expecting past President DJ QL Ramani, from past President of Thane Royal Club in Bombay. And we are expecting Rajiv Walpita from the Rotary Club of Colombo in Sri Lanka, who said he will try to join us, but if he didn't make it, he sends you, David, his very best wishes for next year. So Clive, that's who we're expecting. As usual, Stefan and Tim, you're here every week, so please only contribute if you've got something additional to say. But maybe, Clive, you can have a look around and see if those people are here, or indeed anybody else from overseas.
Yeah, good afternoon all.
Good afternoon.
This is past President Vijay Kevalramani from Rotary Club of Thane Royals, Mumbai, India. And it's always nice to be here. This is my second meeting that I am attending. And it would be my pleasure to attend Tim's farewell meeting. And all the best to your club. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vijay.
And
nice to have you here.
Yeah, I have my colleague Pratik also, who has joined here. He is also a past.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
Do introduce yourself, please. Yes. It says you're Suresh Bhawani. I know you're not Suresh Bhawani. Perhaps you might introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Suresh Bhawani, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Sorry. We also have another Suresh Bhawani on.
Yeah, I'm from Rotary Club Tenerife in Spain, although actually I'm living in London. I've been to your club a few times. Greetings.
Good.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Hi.
Thank
Very
you.
warm welcome to you, Suresh.
Now,
on page 3, we've got Christos from Greece, Clive.
Yeah, Christos.
Hello, everyone. Nice to
Hi,
meet
Christos.
you. Nice to be here. My name is Chris. Yes, I'm from Northern Greece, Thessaloniki. I'm the president of Rotary Club of Thessaloniki, District 2484. And I'm very glad to be here in this very interesting topic today.
Yeah, very
Excellent.
pleased to see you, Christos.
Yeah.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Excellent.
Can't see anybody waving at me.
There's a gentleman waving, Inge Moen. Inge, if you'd like to
Inge.
tell us where you're from.
I'm from Hamar, West Norway. I visited you in February, just before the COVID-19
Yes.
lockdown. But I was able to reach Norway though, and have been here since. Yes, and I'm going to have a speech with you in July.
Lovely. Very good to see you, Inge. Visits to other clubs then. Julian has visited Edgware and Stanmore, and has also visited the Rotary Club of Thane Royal in Bombay. Vasi, Clive and Robert, and possibly some others, attended various elements of the online Rotary International Convention. Last night was the district handover. We had 12 members of our club present, and that went extremely well. And I'm sure we all wish our new district governor, Francis, a very successful year. Robert Ghazi has attended the Peace International Conference on Wednesday, Redbridge Rotary Club, and also the District Youth Service Central. And he did that with Chicago and Colleen. So those are the visits that I've had reported to me. Last Wednesday, we had an event held with the Rotaract, our new Rotaract Club of London, And the event was a Purple for Polio Prosecco party. We had 22 members from the Rotary Club of London present, out of, I think, probably about 60 were on board. And the event raised £1,000. But when, of course, you raise £1,000 for End Polio, that miraculously changes into £3,000 because of the Gates Foundation, who put in double the amount we raise. So we've raised £3,000 for that amazing cause. Well done to President Sean Minton, and well done to Eve and Robert, who gave a helping hand. Turning to the lockdown appeal. Now, we've been running this lockdown appeal now for 12 weeks, and the lockdown for now is kind of over, whilst we enter this new phase of continued social distancing. We have raised just about £16,000 in 12 weeks. £15,000 has already been distributed to 6 charities, which I've reported to you on already. And I've read out thank you letters from a number of them. I have a thank you letter, well, it's a thank you email from Kids Out today. We gave them £2,500, one of 4 children's charities we supported. They say, absolutely fantastic. Please pass on our best thanks to all involved. This donation significantly helps towards our target. I'm now confident that we will achieve our aim of taking every child in refuge on a day out. Perfect timing now that restrictions are lifting and things like cinemas are set to reopen. So that's a letter or an email from Kids Out. The remaining £1,000 that we have, what we said is that whatever is left after our allocated 6 charities, we would give to the Rotaract Club of London to present to their chosen charity. And their chosen charity is Crisis. So it looks like we will have £1,000 to give to Crisis on their behalf. Can I say thank you very much to all of you who have contributed to the lockdown appeal. It's been very, very successful. I also want to thank Chicago. She made an amazing video of me and my year as Vice President and President. But the problem is it's too much to put onto the screen on Zoom. And it was sent out with last Tuesday's mailer. And I think we'll probably go out in tomorrow's mailer again. But Chicago, you put an awful lot of work sourcing all those amazing photographs. And thank you very much for doing that. Now, I'm delighted to say we have 3 inductions today. We have Caroline Muir, who's been introduced by Vasi, Maria Orty, who's been introduced by Vasi, and Nikita Daniel, who has been introduced by Teresa Campbell-Carbon. That will take us, if they're all here, and I've seen 2 of them.
They are.
Certainly. They're all here. Fantastic.
They're all here, Tim.
So once
and
that
the
exercise,
proposers.
yeah, excellent. So once that exercise is complete, that will take the club to 123 members with 1 10-day notice, maybe shortly to go out. So Clive, I will hand over to you at this stage.
Yeah, thank you very much, President Tim. It's a pleasure that once again we are able to induct some new members, and today we have no fewer than 3. As you've just announced, this Caroline and Maria are being proposed by Vasi and Nikinda by Teresa. So can I invite Vasi, if you would unmute yourself, Vasi, and please introduce Caroline and Maria.
Yeah, President Tim, distinguished guests and fellow Rotarians, a great pleasure in introducing my good friend Caroline Moore, who I've known for several years through the Women's Council and from Wirral. Caroline was a British diplomatic spouse for 36 years, accompanying her husband on various postings to the Middle East and the United States. During the various postings, she worked for the British Council, organized charity, fundraising for disabled children. And during her husband's ambassadorships in Oman, June 1994 to February 1999, and then Kuwait in March, she organized fundraising for local disabled charities and was president of the Kuwait International Women's Group. She also worked closely with the UK-based Women in Business in the Arab world. The Kuwait Business Women's Association and local women's groups fighting for women's suffrage in Kuwait. On retirement from the diplomatic service in 2002, she ran Diplomatic Neighbors, the FCO's social cultural program for the wives of the foreign diplomats, retiring from their role in June 2005. She joined the Women's Council in 2007, initially organizing fundraising events, then serving as the chairman between 2009 and 2012. Caroline joined the FIWAL committee in 2012, serving as FIWAL president between 2015 and 2017. As a past president, she's a member of the advisory committee and is joint diplomatic liaison officer. President Tim, I now present Caroline Moore to be inducted. I've no doubt she'll be a very great asset to our club. I'm also delighted to introduce Maria Orti, who I met by chance at a fundraising event beginning of last year. We struck a great rapport almost immediately, and she wanted to know all about Rotary. We kept in touch, and after attending one of our lunch meetings and one Zoom meeting, Maria was ready to commit and apply for Rotary membership. Maria is well-known senior international advisor in Spain, supported businesses in the US, Europe, and LATAM. She's a qualified lawyer in Spain with extensive corporate and commercial practice, as well as property consultant, being qualified by property work in sale of residential property with experience in consultancy services in London and Spain. Maria is a member of the London Chamber Orchestra's Development Committee, LCO, one of the world's finest ensembles of classical music, which also brings together community and educational projects as Music Junction Project and partnership with London's National Gallery. LCO enjoys the patronage of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall. She's resident in UK since 2014 and previously in Spain, USA, and LATAM. She's very fluent in English, Spanish, and French. Maria is married to Vicente and has a son, Nicolas. Her personal interest includes music and the arts, reading, golf, traveling, and riding. President Tim, I present another one of a new member who too will be a great asset to our club.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Vasi.
Thank you. And now can I invite Teresa Campbell-Carbon. Could you please introduce Nakinda Daniel?
Fellow Rotarians, it is a pleasure that I recommend and introduce Nakinda Daniel. I have known Nakinda for quite some time now, and she actually is the third secretary and a diplomat at the Dominica High Commission in London, where I worked previously. Nakinda attended a meeting where I brought fellow Rotarian from the Rotary Club of London to the High Commission to look for opportunities for collaborative work and supporting initiatives in Dominica which support children. Nakinda immediately expressed the interest in joining the Rotary Club and the work that we do. Nakinda has had recent diplomatic highlights in her career, which includes being the deputy representative of the Human Rights Review at the United Nations in Geneva, and also head of delegation for the International Organization for Migration. Nakinda is extremely passionate about working and serving the community, and just having that conversation with her was one of the things where I felt that definitely she would be a good asset to our group. So it was with pleasure that I recommend, introduce and welcome Nakinda to Rotary Club.
Thank you, Teresa.
Terrific. Okay, well, to the three of you, it's absolutely fantastic on my last day as your president to have the opportunity to induct three such amazing new members. The Rotary Global Network consists of 1.2 million friends, neighbors, leaders, and problem solvers in 33,000 Rotary clubs around the world, who see a world where people can unite and take action to promote peace, fight disease, and support education and poverty. Our club, the Rotary Club of London, was chartered. It's the first club to be chartered outside of North America. It was chartered in 1912, when the secretary then of Rotary International was a gentleman called, the president was a gentleman called Paul Harris, who you will hear more about during your Rotary career. And were we now at the Chesterfield, I would invite you to examine our charter and our family tree. The charter is interesting because of the person who was the president and its historical significance. The family tree shows us at the top of all the other clubs in London. All the other clubs in London emanated from our club. I think there's about 60 remaining now, but probably there's about 120, 130 in total who were formed from the Rotary Club of London. Some of them have not, unfortunately, survived. There's many, many ways you can get involved in the Rotary Club of London. One, of course, is to attend our regular weekly meetings, but there are numerous committees who specialize. You've got Community and Vocational Committee, you've got the International Committee, you've got the House Committee that looks after our meetings, and so on and so on and so on. There's lots of ways you can get involved if you wish to get more involved in the nitty-gritty of the club, which makes it all much more worthwhile. So very many congratulations to the three of you. I hope you enjoy Rotary as much as I enjoy Rotary and the rest of the members enjoy Rotary. And I think, Clive, we're now going to ask each one of those very good ladies to say a few words.
Indeed, yes. And I'm going to turn first to Caroline Muir. We can hear and see
Very
you.
good. Well, thank you. Well, I'm honoured and delighted to be accepted as a member of the London Rotary. The more I hear about Rotary, I understand what a wonderful and worthwhile organisation it is, and I look forward to being very active with the London Rotary Club. I hope I shall prove a worthy member.
Sure,
Thank you
will, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline. And now, Maria Orti. Say a few words, Maria.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Team President and Vasi and you, Clive. And this is really an honor and a pleasure to join the Rotary Club in London. And I hope to meet you, all of you, very soon in person, and to be involved in the activities and the event of the club. I think that there are a club in Sotogrande, Cádiz, isn't it? Yes, I think so. So I will be there very soon, and I hope also to meet them there, and maybe to do the Zoom with you from Spain, Sotogrande.
Fantastic. Well done,
So
Maria. Thank you very much.
the only thing that I want to thank Vasi for this opportunity, and to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now Nakinda. And yes, you're unmuted. Nakinda, would you like to say a few words, please?
Thank you so much, Clive. I must thank you so much from the beginning of this experience. You have been so helpful, and you have been a shepherd in all of this. And I would like to thank Teresa as well for introducing me and for bringing me into this organization, this worthy organization with such a long, rich history. So it is a privilege for me to be inducted today. And I look forward to learning from all of you and to working with you to make a contribution in this organization. Service before self is something that I really believe in and I am passionate about. And I am prepared to work collaboratively with everybody and to learn from all of you. So it's a happy day for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nakinda.
Fantastic.
And those are our three new inductees, President.
Absolutely fantastic. Caroline, Maria and Nakinda, one more time, a very warm welcome. And we look forward to seeing you on Zoom meetings for now, and then back at the Chesterfield when we get back to the Chesterfield. All right, the next thing we need to do is to have our toast to the Queen. So if you can all grab your wine, your beer, your coffee, your tea, your water, your Coke, whatever you might have in front of you, remaining seated, if we all just raise our glasses to the Queen.
The Queen.
Okay, and now we come to the highlight of the meeting, our speaker. David, the Right Honourable the Lord Hunt of Wirral. David Hunt began his parliamentary career in 1976, becoming MP for Wirral. In government, he served as a minister under Margaret Thatcher, who made him Secretary of State for Wales in 1990. From 1979 to 1995, Lord Hunt also held other ministerial positions, including Secretary of State for Employment and Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, whilst also being appointed to the Privy Council in 1990. He joined the House of Lords in 1997 and was appointed to the front bench in 2008 by David Cameron. He now chairs the Association of Conservative Peers. Having been a senior partner at the national law firm DAC Beachcroft, he is now chairman of the firm's financial services division and is regarded as a major figure in the world of insurance and financial services. David is also non-executive director of Link and Global Risks. David joined the Rotary Club of London in November 2000. So David, it's your 20th anniversary with us. David supports the club very well. It was only a month or two before lockdown that he won the monthly attendance award, which basically meant that he had attended every meeting in the previous month. And of course, he very generously and kindly sponsored our House of Lords dinner in February. And when he sponsors our dinner, it means he's responsible for us and all our behaviour and financial commitments. So that's quite an undertaking, but I think we got away with it, David, without having to call on you. So that all went very well. The talk today from David is called his vision of the House of Lords in 2050. And I have very much pleasure in handing over to you now, David.
Better unmute myself. Can you hear me okay? All right. Well, President Tim, thank you very much for, not only for asking me to speak at your last Rotary meeting as president, but also in giving me the subject. And I think it's fair to say that Lord's reform is probably one of the most densely populated political graveyards, because many careers have risen and fallen on the ambition of reforming the House of Lords. So who on earth can possibly take it upon themselves to predict what the House of Lords will look like in 2050? Well, that's the task President Tim has given me. So I'll have a try, but I'd be very happy to deal with any ideas you might have. My first point is that if you were designing a second parliamentary chamber from scratch, I think it would look very different indeed from what we have today. Today is the historic result of way back in the 11th century. The monarch decided to establish a series of councils or witans, which he could utilize from time to time to take advice, guidance, etc., from senior members of the nation. And then in the 11th and 12th, 13th and 14th centuries, the role of the House of Lords started moving towards that of a parliament and was populated by lords spiritual as well as lords temporal. And the lords temporal were mainly people selected by the monarch amongst his supporters, and it was a reward for various services granted. And of course, those services varied considerably, but were mainly personal to the king at the time. Over the years, particularly after Henry VIII had decided to take over the leadership of the church during the 16th, 15th, and then the 16th centuries, under those monarchs, Tudor, Stuart, slowly but surely, the House of Lords started to take more of a backseat, and the House of Commons, especially following the Civil War, became the main thrust. And it was in fact Charles I who arrested the Speaker of the House of Commons, because the House of Commons was refusing to grant the king money to fight the wars he wanted to fight in France. It was that act which was held by the House of Commons to be treason, which resulted in the execution of Charles I. And I could tell you lots of stories about that, because when I had the honor of being treasurer to the Queen, I, of course, immediately uncovered the fact that Her Majesty the Queen, because of what happened to Charles I, will never go anywhere near the House of Commons and only comes to the House of Lords, provided a hostage is taken, a senior member of Parliament from the House of Commons, is taken first to Buckingham Palace and is not released until Her Majesty is back safely again. So there is so much history here. But from time to time, the House of Commons has come into dispute with the House of Lords. And when I now try and predict what's going to happen, it's probably a good idea just to look back into the last century and just work out for a moment what happened as the House of Lords tried to dictate to the House of Commons the way it should conduct the business of the nation. And the 1911 Parliament Act was an attempt by the House of Commons to restrict the powers of the House of Lords. And it virtually established that if there was a money bill or money was required from the public coffers for some particular action which the government had decided on, then only the House of Commons could decide. And the House of Lords had a period of delay, which was eventually brought back to just 1 year's delay. And that didn't apply to money bills at all. So that was, and then Harold Wilson decided, particularly following the Life Peerages Act, which resulted from Anthony Wedgwood Benn becoming suddenly Viscount Stansgate, which he didn't want because he wanted to be Member of Parliament for Bristol South East, following the Life Peerages Act, which enabled people to convert from being, or in effect, convert from being a hereditary peer into a life peer, and created a new breed of life peers. That was a substantial reform. But Harold Wilson decided to get rid of the House of Lords virtually. And in 1967-68, that attempt to reform and abolish, in effect, the House of Lords was thwarted by two key parliamentary individuals, Enoch Powell and Michael Foot, who combined from the right and the left to defeat Harold Wilson's plans. And it all goes a bit quiet from then until Tony Blair was elected in 1997 with a new manifesto which said, we must remove all the hereditary peers. And if I just look at the House of Lords today, there are now, I think, 771 peers. When I entered the House of Lords in 1997, there were 1,400. But Tony Blair's main reform was to get rid of most of the hereditary peers, leaving just 92. And I could explore with you why that happened if you want to hear more about it. But let's pause now and look forward to what is the role of the House of Lords today. Well, I said, I think 771. There are 249 Conservatives. There's 200 or so crossbenchers, 170 Labour Party peers, 90 who take the Liberal Democrat whip. We have 26 bishops of the Church of England, and quite a lot of individual people, about 50 of them, who don't take one party or another and don't even sit as crossbenchers. Now, what's going to be the House of Lords in 2050? I don't know. Tim? I have to confess, I just do not know. I am a victim of over-predicting. When I stood for Parliament 50 years ago, I think the 18th of June, 1970, as soon as I got into Parliament, later that decade, I formed a group called Towards 2000. And I suppose I was trying to look 30 years ahead. Well, I got one or two things right. I predicted there would be a mobile telephone and that would transform communications, but I failed to predict the internet, although I thought that there would be a better knowledge-based mechanism of accumulating experience and knowledge, but still it was very difficult to predict. And now, 30 years ahead, I think the great thing about the House of Lords is that it has a collection of people who are experts. The problem has got confused because recent prime ministers have decided to put all their private offices in the House of Lords, and there have also been people who've accumulated money for political parties who've been put into the House of Lords. But really the House of Lords expertise, it lies in the fact that senior civil servants, top scientists, industrialists come into the House of Lords and they have a view which is probably very helpful to the government of the time. So if I were to predict in 2050, it would be that the House of Lords will continue because many have predicted its abolition, its extinction unsuccessfully. I'm not going to go down that road, but I think it will justify its existence by being a revising house and a house that's got a collection of people who can add something, but not to dictate. And I'm sure the House of Commons will remain the main legislative chamber in Parliament. Thank you, President Tim.
David, thank you very much indeed. You're all right for some questions, David, I'm sure?
Yes, if you wish to ask a question, can you please raise your hand? But can we start? Who would like to? Yes, Ridian. I'm going to Ridian Jones. Ridian, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
David, thank you very much for that. That's a very interesting tour d'horizon. But what I'm particularly interested, I think, is your feelings about the possible reforms, which I think are due to be looked at in terms of political composition. I think it's quite extraordinary that there are 10 times as many Liberal peers in the House of Lords as there are Liberal members of Parliament. I think Roy Jenkins, in his book, Mr. Balfour's Poodle, had a very interesting description of what the House of Lords is. What would be your description of the House of Lords if you had to have a funny name to call it?
Yeah, it's, I don't know about the latter, but so far as the Liberal Democrats are concerned, of course, it's historic. It is supposed to reflect in its political compensation the result of the previous general election. And of course, we did have a coalition government between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. And when they left office, there was a resignation honours list, not only for David Cameron, but also Nick Clegg. And a very substantial number of Liberal Democrats were elevated into the House of Lords. Some took K's, as Vince Cable took knighthoods, but there were a substantial number who joined the House of Lords. So therefore, when it then comes to the next election, and you're quite right, when very few Liberal MPs were elected, it looks disproportionate. Well, the only way you could succeed in getting the right numbers for the right parties would be to ask certain people to leave. And the reforms that have recently been introduced, and I sat on the Speaker's Commission to look at ways of persuading peers that the time had come for them to retire. we now have a retirement provision, but the 90 Liberal Democrats have shown no dispensation to joining the queue of those who would like to retire. So it's very difficult. And I think you just have to accept the historic position, but move away from being a party political House of Lords, because the government doesn't have a majority and can actually get defeated, and does get defeated. In fact, now that we've got virtual voting, which I think will probably be part of the future, although it's never been there in the past, the government got defeated 3 times on a major bill last week through the virtual voting system, in which nearly 600 people participated. So I don't know what, I think the only way I could say what's it all going to get called in 2050 is to say we'll still have a parliament and we'll still have a House of Commons and a House of Lords. But I think if the House of Lords is sensible, it will reduce its powers to intervene in government affairs and increase its ability to advise.
Thank you. I'm now going to Brian Coleman. Brian, if you would like to unmute yourself, and then I think Doug Wills, you wish to ask a question.
The trouble with reforming the House of Lords is it gives it more legitimacy. And that's always been one of the issues. Whilst it was full of hereditary peers, I'm not sure anyone took it hugely seriously. The trouble is the current crop of peers seem to think they have a legitimacy, often over the House of Commons. Do you think that is an issue that's got to be tackled? Because we could never have the Lords having supremacy over the Commons.
I agree with your final comment. You've always got to recognise that the directly elected chamber has the supreme power, and that chamber decides who will be asked by Her Majesty to form a government. So the legitimacy is and always will be with the House of Commons. You're quite right. There are certain peers who think that they are just as, if not more, well qualified, better qualified to pontificate on certain major issues. And I think that's detrimental. I think the House of Lords, the great skill of the House of Lords is looking at issues like, at the moment, we've got the Business and Planning Bill coming up next Monday, which is being rushed through the House of Commons in one day. And I think the House of Lords will spend more time with it, as we did with the coronavirus bill, which was rushed through, emergency legislation. The House of Lords is at its best when it takes its time, devotes its talents to scrutinize and make sure that it is better law, and not because they know better, but because their expertise is different and more varied, but they don't have the legitimacy of being directly elected. Now, there are people who would like to see a directly elected House of Lords. I don't think that's going to happen because you would then get a huge amount of conflict between the elected House of Commons and then the subsequently elected House of Lords. And it would be very difficult to manage constitutionally.
Would you like to ask your question, Doug?
Thank you. David, that was fascinating, and I know that you have absolute perfect knowledge of this. If the House of Lords is fit for purpose, where should it actually be? Because it slightly ties up with if there should be an elected House. But do you think it has to be in London? I hope you will answer yes. But there are very loud calls for it to be elsewhere. Where do you think it should be?
Now, perhaps we should have a competition, President Tim, as a consequence of this discussion, as to people who might.
David, can't hear you. I think I've unmuted David. I think I managed to do it. Yes.
Well,
okay, David. Yes.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Fit for purpose was Doug's question, and I was seeking to. I don't know how much of my answer you heard.
We did.
And I apologise for. I don't know who muted me. It's probably something a lot of my opponents have been trying to do for years. But I didn't think my fellow Rotarians would do it. I just think that at the end of the day, the House of Lords' justification is to be a chamber of experts. So therefore, one of the big things in the past, I remember when I was Cabinet Minister for Science, my nervous moments when I had to go before the Select Committee on Science and Technology in the House of Lords and face some of the country's leading scientists was a horrific experience, but one which taught me a great deal. And I think the House of Lords justifies its existence by continually building up that expertise.
Mm-hmm. And where should it be located?
Well, I avoided that. But you're quite right to remind me. Dominic Cummins, I think I was saying, when I suddenly discovered I was muted, in a rash moment said it should move to a railway siding in York.
And he can be there too.
Yeah, and he even identified this huge area that could take the House of Lords. Now, I think Parliament, whether you like it or not, has to be in the capital. It has to be close to all the departments of government, so it can monitor them through its select committee system. And I think that's worked very well. Each department has a departmental select committee scrutinizing it, and we've seen the advantages of that with Jeremy Hunt chairing the health select committee, etc., etc., etc. So I think it's got to be London.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm now going to, Flo, are you asking a question?
Yes, may I please?
Please.
Yes,
yes.
hello. Hello, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon, David. It occurs to me with what's happening at the moment, if members of the House of Lords Zoom to go to the House of Lords, do they collect a salary?
Oh. Well, Flo, this has been a huge bone of contention.
I know.
Because we don't get paid. What has happened over many years is that a system of allowances has crept up. So if you have to travel to get to the chamber, you get your travel expenses. You also got a secretary allowance, an overnight allowance if you had to travel from far. And eventually, in order to try and regularize this, the House of Lords decided to have a daily allowance which covered everything. It wasn't pay, it was to cover expenses. And therefore it was tax-free. And that was £300. And then someone somewhere decided to increase the £300 by the RPI each year, and it's been going up. I think it's now £323. But when of course we could no longer, due to the present crisis, attend the House of Lords, we then moved to remote working. So people could talk over Zoom, make their speeches, as I did on my birthday on the 21st of May. I spoke in a debate virtually. And now, just in the last few days, we've introduced remote voting. And Parliament has now decided that if peers speak and vote, obviously they can't do it in the House of Lords, they do it remotely, they get paid half the allowance if they wish to claim. So you get paid £167, I think it is, or thereabouts, each time you participate in a debate. as if you were going into the chamber, but do it virtually. And I think, Flo, all I would say about this new system, and I don't know what eventually will happen, I think most peers want to see the House of Lords return to what they call normal in September. But I think this idea of remote voting and remote speaking should continue, particularly for those peers who live a long way away up in the Shetlands or the Orkneys or far off distances or in Cornwall. They could, why shouldn't they continue to participate? Whether they get paid any allowances or not is a question that only Parliament can decide.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
David.
David.
Lovely answer.
Can I now move to, come in, Caroline, please.
Lord Hunt, can I ask, you have within the House of Commons specialist committees for the various subjects, as you say, science and technology. Do you have the same in the House of Lords?
Yeah, yes and no, Carol, and many congratulations on your becoming one of my colleagues. At the moment, we are looking at select committees, and there is one committee I've been a member of for some time, although I just finished my 6-year term, called the Select Committee of the Constitution in the House of Lords. So we do have select committees, but the Select Committee on the Constitution is looking at whether or not we should have more select committees and more departmental select committees. Now, I was in Parliament in 1979, June 79. So it's, 41 years ago, this month, we set up departmental select committees. It was in Margaret Thatcher's manifesto in 1979. It was brought in by Norman St. John Stevens. And I think they've been a great success in holding the government to account. What I'd now prefer to see, and I've just given evidence last week to the Constitution Select Committee, is that we should repeat that in the House of Lords, but by combining forces with the House of Commons, not trying to mirror what they're doing, but by asking them whether they would mind if some of our most expert members of the House of Lords joined their select committees to monitor the work of government departments. We also have a European Union Select Committee, and we've got a number of other select committees, but I think we are at our best if we join forces in scrutinizing the government and holding the government to account with the House of Commons by what I call joint select committees made up from the House of Commons. Primarily, they would have the chair, but with members of the House of Lords as well.
Thank you. I think that would be an excellent solution.
Thank you.
Margaret Cooper, did you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Hunt, for your excellent enlightening talk. My question is very simple. An invitation to the Queen and the member of Commons has to be held hostage. Is it symbolic or a physical hostage taking? And if so, who do you decide? Is there anybody in particular the House of Lords would like to have a hostage?
Well, Margaret, it's a fascinating scene that occurs every time there is a state opening of Parliament. Because you have the situation where Her Majesty, like all her predecessors, going way back to Charles II, because Charles I was executed, they have never been anywhere near the House of Commons. And therefore, eventually a compromise was reached whereby if they were to go anywhere near the Houses of Parliament and they would only go to their own chamber, the House of Lords, this is way back, then a senior person in the House of Commons had to be held hostage before the monarch would leave Buckingham Palace. Now, who is selected? There are 3 senior whips. The Treasurer of Her Majesty's Household, who's Deputy Chief Whip in the government. Then you have the Controller of Her Majesty's Household, who's the next most senior whip, and then the next most senior whip is Vice Chamberlain of Her Majesty's household. And under every government has always been the Vice Chamberlain of Her Majesty's household, who, by the way, reports to Her Majesty every day on what is happening in Parliament in a private, often manuscript document going to the Queen, which is why Her Majesty is always so well briefed on what is happening in Parliament. But it is the Vice Chamberlain who goes as the hostage, escorted by the Treasurer and the Controller. And when I was Treasurer for 3 years, together with the Controller, Robert Boscowen, who was MP for Wells, we would take Tristan Garrell-Jones, Lord Garrell-Jones, who sadly has just died, but he was the MP for Watford. We'd take him to the palace, and Her Majesty would accept the hostage and then very graciously give us the 6th carriage to travel back with her in her procession to the Houses of Parliament. And then we come back again to collect the Vice Chamberlain of Her Majesty's household, who'd then be released.
Thank you.
Clive,
yes.
Can we just cut it at 2 more? I think Anthony's got his hand up and Hugh has got his hand up. And then
I've got several. Let me go to Hugh then, please. I've got several others who were wanting to ask questions. But
David, your talk was excellent. What is the history of the bishops in the House of Lords? And why are they not represented by heads of other religious organizations like the cardinals or the chief rabbis or the imams? And what do you regard as the real impact and value of such leaders in the House of Lords?
It's all part of the Church of England being the established church, Hugh. And therefore, over the years, there have always been the Lords Spiritual in the House of Lords representing the Church of England. And there are now 26. One has just retired. The Archbishop of York has just retired. So there's 25 at the moment. Now, the justification for that is, of course, way, way back when the House of Lords was first established, the group of Wittans, the real power lay with the monarch, surrounded by the court, which was mainly made up of the Lords Spiritual. It all got a bit confused at the time of the Reformation, the time of the break with Rome and everything else. So it has continued to this day, and Her Majesty is the head of the Church of England, and her Lords Spiritual sit in the House of Lords. Now, some time ago, Prince Charles did cause some controversy by saying, well, perhaps we should, instead of just being head of the Church of England, shouldn't the monarch be head of all the different churches? And it remains to be seen whether there is some change. But in the meantime, I think it was Margaret Thatcher invited the chief rabbi to be a member of the House of Lords, and I think we've had the chief rabbi ever since. She also invited Cardinal Hume to be a member of the House of Lords, and I remember being involved in a discussion about that, but sadly the Pope decided that it was not possible for the Cardinal to be a member of the House of Lords, as well as being answerable to the Pope in Rome. So I'm probably skirting over some deep, huge philosophical and spiritual questions, but at the moment we do have quite a collection of different faiths in the House of Lords, and we benefit greatly from that fact. Thank you, Hugh.
Yeah, I mean, we have had 35 minutes of solid questions, so I'm sorry, probably we could go on for hours asking you questions, David, but thank you very much for the answers you've given to those. That we've had a very good and thorough questions session. I'm going to invite our President-elect, David Johnson, to do the vote of thanks. David, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. and thank you very much indeed, Lord Hunt. I think in the last 45 minutes, we've had an exemplary instruction, which has taken all of David's 50 years experience in politics in the past, and to look forward another 30 years is actually encompassing a very large span of political time. I was a little bit, I was hoping that one amongst his predictions, he would be including the date on which the Lords would once again sit in the House of Lords, but I think he indicated September, because I think a lot of us in Rotary are looking for a date when we might actually be able to sit in the same room again. And as the House of Lords is moving towards virtual communication, I think perhaps one could be predicting a virtual House of Lords. Then we don't have to worry about whether it's in York or Westminster. But in summary, I just like to thank you, Lord Hunt, for all that you have done for the ending of Tim's year on such a high note. And while the President reigns for just a year, your 50 years of experience has been encapsulated in just over half an hour. Thank you so much. And if I may pass it back to yourself now, I'm hoping that you will actually have a few words to say.
Well, David, thank you very much indeed. That's really kind of you. And may I please give you my very best wishes for a really successful year ahead. But it does give me the opportunity, if I am allowed, just to pay tribute to President Tim. Tim McAndrews, I think, personifies all that is best in Rotary. Service above self. I remember being instructed by Doreen Miller when I became her vice president in 2010, and we went through to our centenary year. I think Clive Amos tried to explain to me what I should do, and in particular what I shouldn't do. And I'm not sure he would approve of the speaker now moving a vote of thanks, but hopefully he's not going to intervene on me, because I would just like to say to President Tim McAndrews, thank you very much indeed for all you have done, not just making sure that I had to give 6 bottles of House of Lords champagne as the raffle prize at that great dinner on the 13th of February. You have this amazing talent for persuading people to do what otherwise they would never do. And that is to serve to the utmost of their ability. And it's a great skill. I would never, to anybody else, have started embarking on trying to look ahead 30 years to the future structure of the British Constitution. But I have, because you asked me to. And there are many people in Rotary who you have inspired to greater efforts. So my thank you to David for his vote of thanks is to propose a vote of thanks to Tim McAndrews. Thank you very much.
David, thank you very much indeed for those very, very kind words. And can I just add to what David said that I actually have I'm sure you've got lots of these, but I've got a speaker's certificate to give you, which I will send to you tomorrow. Thank you so much indeed. Okay, we're not actually quite finished, and there is a reason we've got to this particular point in time today. And I'm going to, can you all please make sure you are muted, apart from Vasi. Vasi, you have asked for the last 10 minutes today, and I am going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Tim. Well, President, on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to say that we have enjoyed your year as President. And despite the coronavirus pandemic, you achieved a lot and did it your way. So now, without much ado, I'm going to call upon William Bryn. He has very kindly said that he would do a performance for you. And he's going to sing a few songs, and one of them your favorite, and it's going to sing My Way. So over to you, William Bryn.
Thank you so much, Vassie, for inviting me along. You may recall I did pop along to sing for you a couple of years back at one of your functions, and it's a great pleasure to join you again today. So I'm going to sing a few songs for you, and I'm delighted to be able to help you in this celebration of Tim's presidency. So I'm going to start off with a song. It's one of my favorite songs to sing, made famous by a beautiful singer by the name of Perry Como. So I'm really hoping that you can hear this. I've got a speaker here behind me and I'm going to be singing along. So hopefully the sound is going to be good. Here we go. It's impossible, tell the sun to leave the sky. It's just impossible. It's impossible. Ask a baby not to cry. It's just impossible. Can I hold you closer to me and not feel you going through me? Split the second that I never think of you. Oh, how impossible. Can the ocean keep from rushing to the shore? It's just impossible. If I had you, could I ever want for more? It's just impossible. And tomorrow, should you ask me for the world, somehow I'd get it. I would sell my very soul and not regret it. For to live without your love, it's just impossible. Can keep from rushing to the shore? It's just impossible. If I had you, could I ever want for more? It's just impossible. And tomorrow, should you ask me for the world, somehow I'd get it. I would sell my very soul and not regret it. For to live without your love, it's just impossible. It's just impossible. I hope you enjoyed that. This is my first Zoom performance. So, okay, I'm going to finish up with this song. And as Vassie mentioned, it is a favorite of your chairperson, President Tim. So I'm going to sing this, the wonderful song made famous by Frank Sinatra, written by Paul Anka. It is My Way. Here we go. And thank you so much for inviting me again. Now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friends, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, but more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spat it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now as tears subside, I find it all oh so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of the one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my Thank you very much. Good afternoon from me. Thank you, Bessie.
Thank you.
Well done, Tim.
Thank you very much. William, that was
your way. Thank you very much.
That's absolutely terrific, William. Thank you so much.
My
it
pleasure.
must be an absolute nightmare singing on Zoom, and you've done unbelievably well. For the first time you've done it, it came across very clearly. It was, but just without that interaction, it must be really hard. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
And as and when you are near the Chesterfield, when we resume normal activities, please do come along with Vasi for one of our lunches. Mm-hmm. And you're very free to sing again on that occasion if you so wish. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, Vasi, thank you very much for asking William to sing. It's an absolutely terrific way to end my year. Next week is the new President's Day. David Johnson will be taking over. I'm ceremoniously going to unhook my collarette. There is the President's collarette. I will now pass that through the bottom of my screen to you, David, so you can take possession of it. Clive, could you unmute everybody, please? Okay, are we all unmuted?
Everyone's unmuted.
Okay, can we do two things? First of all, can we have a proper applause for William for singing those two songs, one that he can actually hear? Thanks, Shasti. And can I now ask you to grab your drinks, your wine, your beer, your coffee, your tea, your water, your Coke, whatever it is, for our final toast, Rotary and peace the world over.
Rotary and peace the world over.
Thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed.
Well done. Absolutely brilliant.
Congratulations. Great, Bussy. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
You don't
Amazing.